The HOA president actually called 911 because I dared to leave her precious little kingdom, but she had no idea my son was about to show up in uniform. Let me paint you a picture that'll make your blood boil. I'm standing in my own driveway on a Tuesday morning when the rumble of diesel engines cuts through our quiet street. Two squad cars roll up like I'm some kind of most wanted criminal. The acrid smell of exhaust mixes with my morning coffee as heavy boots crunch across the gravel. And there's Karen Whitfield, our neighborhood's self-appointed dictator, literally jumping up and down, pointing at me with her perfectly manicured talons. This woman spent 6 months making my life hell with fake violations, harassment letters, and now she's shrieking at the cops. Arrest him. He's destroying our community. His illegal fence is a menace. Illegal fence. The same fence that passed 3 inspections and follows every single HOA rule to the letter. The lead officer steps out, tall and imposing, hand resting on his radio. Karen's so busy performing her victim act that she doesn't notice him smile when he sees me. She's waving papers around like some deranged legal scholar, her voice hitting that glass-breaking pitch that makes you want to cover your ears. Then Officer Torres turns around fully, and my heart swells with pride. Hi, Dad. What seems to be the problem here? Karen's face goes whiter than her overpriced BMW. Turns out when you spend months filing false police reports against someone, you should probably check if their kid carries a badge and arrest powers first. Welcome to HOA Tales. If you love stories about standing up to neighborhood tyrants and seeing justice served, you're in the right place. If these stories resonate with you, drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. My name is Marcus Torres, and up until 14 months ago, I thought I had life figured out. 28 years as a union electrician, 3 kids who actually turned out decent, and a wife who could make even my worst days feel like sunshine. Sarah and I bought our little ranch house in Willowbrook Estates 8 years back. Her dream of living somewhere safe and clean where the kids could ride bikes without dodging potholes. Sarah passed last spring. Cancer took her fast, like it was in some kind of hurry, leaving me rattling around this house with nothing but memories and our old golden retriever buddy. My kids tried their best to help. Cameron's 29 now, detective with the county sheriff's department. Got his dad's stubborn streak and his mom's sense of justice. They all wanted me to sell the house, move closer to one of them. But this place still smells like Sarah's lavender soap in the master bathroom, and I wasn't ready to let that go. The HOA seemed harmless enough when we moved in. $1,200 a year to keep the common areas nice, maintain the little playground, run the clubhouse where nobody ever held any actual events. The rules were simple. Keep your grass cut, don't paint your house neon green, don't park boats in the driveway. Basic stuff that any decent neighbor follows. Then Karen Whitfield decided she needed a hobby. Karen's been the HOA president for 6 straight years, mainly because she's the only person crazy enough to want the job. She's 48, married to some real estate lawyer named Preston, and drives a white BMW X5 with vanity plates that read HOA 365. Their house is this massive colonial, 4,800 square feet of constant construction noise because Karen's always improving something. But Karen's real talent isn't home renovation. It's finding new and creative ways to make your life miserable while pretending she's maintaining community standards. It started small. Karen would cruise the neighborhood in her BMW, clipboard in hand, measuring grass height with an actual ruler. She'd take pictures, endless, obsessive photographs of garbage cans positioned 6 inches wrong, holiday decorations left up one day too long, cars parked at slightly imperfect angles in their own driveways. The breaking point came last October when I decided to install a privacy fence around my backyard. Nothing fancy, just a 4-foot cedar fence so Buddy could wander around without me worrying about him wandering into the street. I researched the HOA guidelines, got 3 contractor quotes, pulled the proper permits, everything by the book. The fence went up on a Wednesday. Thursday morning, Karen's clicking down my sidewalk in her designer heels, measuring tape and clipboard in hand. This fence, she announced, waving perfectly smooth legal papers, violates our aesthetic harmony clause. I pulled out my copy of the HOA rules, pointed to section 4.2, clearly stating that fences under 4 feet require no approval. Karen's nostrils flared like an angry horse. The rules, she said, lips pursed tight enough to crack walnuts, are subject to interpretation by the board. You mean subject to interpretation by you? I replied, since you are the board. That's when I learned Karen's favorite phrase. 72 hours or $500 daily fine. That fence became Karen's obsession. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., she'd march past my house, photographing it from different angles like she was building a criminal case. But the fence was just the beginning. Karen had found her new favorite target. December rolled around, and I figured maybe the holidays would give Karen something else to focus on. Sarah always went all out for Christmas, not crazy overboard, but warm and welcoming. I was up on the ladder the Saturday after Thanksgiving, stringing LED lights along the gutters when I heard the familiar click-click of designer heels. Those lights, Karen called out, are excessive. I looked around. My display was modest compared to the house 2 doors down, which looked like a casino exploded. But apparently, my simple string of warm white LEDs was the real menace to society. The energy conservation guidelines clearly state that holiday displays must not exceed reasonable consumption standards, she said. There was no energy conservation clause. Karen was literally making stuff up on the spot. She handed me a violation notice, $200 per day, starting December 20th. That evening, I took a walk around the neighborhood. Karen's house looked like the North Pole threw up on it. Thousands of multicolored lights, animated displays, a light show synchronized to music you could hear 3 blocks away. None of the other elaborate displays had violation notices. I spent that weekend doing homework. Turns out the city had 0 restrictions on holiday lighting. I also discovered something interesting about Preston Whitfield. He wasn't licensed to practice HOA law in our county. His specialty was commercial real estate. I created a group text with 12 neighbors. Willowbrook Resistance. Tuesday evening, 12 houses lit up simultaneously across 3 streets. It was beautiful, a neighborhood united in celebrating the holidays together. Karen couldn't write violation notices to everyone at once without admitting she'd been selectively targeting people. Her counterstrike came through city code enforcement. She'd called reporting a fire hazard at my address. The inspector was Rick Gonzalez, a guy I'd worked union jobs with 15 years back. Rick took one look at my professional-grade installation and just shook his head. Marcus, this is the cleanest holiday lighting job I've seen all season. Then Rick mentioned something chilling. You're the 4th call I've gotten this month from this address range. Same complainant each time. Filing false reports with city agencies can get you in serious legal trouble. January brought Karen's next assault disguised as the Leash Law Enforcement Committee. Karen and her sidekick Martha targeting my 12-year-old golden retriever Buddy. According to Karen's newly minted pet policy, Buddy was a menace for walking onto the front lawn to retrieve the newspaper while I watched from the porch. The violation notice accused Buddy of aggressive off-leash behavior, $300 fine plus mandatory pet behavioral assessment for an additional $400. Instead of collapsing under bureaucratic terrorism, I pulled out my phone and started recording. Just documenting this for my records. That weekend, I installed security cameras, 4 cameras covering my property perimeter, all perfectly legal since they only recorded my own land. Monday morning brought the first payoff. Karen trespassing on my property to photograph Buddy's food bowl while her own cat roamed freely through 3 different yards, violating every pet policy she'd invented. Preston sent a cease and desist letter demanding I remove the cameras, claiming they violated neighborhood privacy standards. My union benefits included legal consultation. The lawyer actually laughed when I read him Preston's letter. This looks like harassment disguised as legal process. My lawyer discovered that Preston's law firm represented the HOA management company. Every violation fee Karen collected, Preston's firm got a percentage. They weren't just harassing me for kicks, they were literally profiting from it. March brought Karen's Spring Beautification Standards Initiative. All front yards must meet professional landscaping criteria by April 30th or face daily fines of $150. The requirements read like a luxury garden center wish list. Estimated cost $2,300 minimum, using Karen's 3 approved vendors. I researched actual options and designed a landscape plan using native wildflowers, prairie grasses, and local shrubs. Total cost after city rebates, $380. I partnered with Jerry Martinez's local nursery and organized a neighborhood bulk buying cooperative, cutting everyone's costs by 40%. Karen showed up to shut it down, flanked by Preston and a landscape compliance coordinator. Your proposed landscaping fails to meet traditional aesthetic compliance standards. Karen had made a crucial mistake. Her requirements violated city environmental policies. Her approved plant list included several invasive species, and her irrigation requirements violated municipal water conservation ordinances. I made an anonymous call to the city's water conservation office. 3 days later, Karen received her own violation notice from the city for violating multiple municipal water restrictions with her automatic sprinkler system. April brought unexpected help from my daughter Alexis, who mentioned patient record transparency laws during Sunday dinner. That got me thinking about HOA accountability. Turns out homeowners associations are required to maintain detailed financial records that any resident can inspect with reasonable notice. I drafted a formal records request for 3 years of financial statements, vendor contracts, meeting minutes, and expense reports. Karen tried to block it, claiming executive privilege protection. When she refused, my union attorney sent a formal demand letter. The documents arrived revealing the HOA had been operating at a massive deficit for 18 months, hemorrhaging money at a rate that would bankrupt us within 6 months. Karen had approved a $47,000 landscaping contract with Prestige Grounds Management, owned by Preston's brother-in-law. None of this work had been done. Then there was the $23,000 clubhouse renovation that consisted entirely of paint and light fixtures, another relative in Preston's network. Karen's violation fee collection was the only thing keeping the HOA from complete financial collapse. Every trumped-up fine was designed to generate revenue to cover their embezzlement scheme. Most damning, our HOA liability coverage had lapsed 4 months ago due to unpaid premiums. I made copies and secured them in 3 locations, then called the State Attorney General's office. They have a specific division handling HOA fraud cases and were very interested in our detailed financial records. Saturday morning, I organized an emergency backyard meeting. 14 neighbors gathered as I spread the HOA financial documents across the table. Dorothy Malone, a retired accountant, leaned forward. "Marcus, you look like someone who discovered their accountant's been stealing from them." "Close," I replied. "More like someone who discovered their HOA president's been stealing from all of us." For the next hour, I walked them through Karen's financial shell game. Dorothy took notes, occasionally whistling as the numbers painted their ugly picture. Linda Martinez, who worked as a paralegal, asked probing questions about contract dates. "This is systematic fraud," Linda said. "Karen and Preston have been using the HOA as their personal piggy bank while manufacturing violations to cover their theft." We developed a comprehensive response plan. Everyone stops paying violation fees immediately, redirecting that money to a legal defense fund. Dorothy would complete a forensic audit for the Attorney General's office. Linda would file a petition for emergency HOA elections. We'd demand the management company restore our lapsed insurance coverage. The key was coordination and documentation. Every neighbor needed to document every interaction with Karen, save every violation notice, record every board meeting. Corrupt people can't help but create evidence of their crimes. May arrived with Karen becoming increasingly erratic. She filed a police report claiming I'd threatened her with physical violence during an encounter that never happened. The problem? My security cameras had clear footage showing I hadn't left my property that day. Cameron called that evening. "Dad, someone filed a complaint alleging you threatened them. You might want to document your whereabouts more carefully." Karen escalated by calling my old union hall reporting me for unethical conduct. She called City Code Enforcement daily with new complaints. Noise violations for mowing at 2 p.m., zoning complaints for having neighbors visit, environmental violations for watering my plants. Rick Gonzalez finally called directly. "Marcus, this lady has filed 17 complaints about your property in the past month. We've investigated every single one and found 0 violations. She's abusing the system." Then Karen played her nuclear card. She and Preston hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on my family. The PI made a crucial mistake. He recognized Cameron's name and called him directly instead of conducting surveillance. "Detective Torres, this is Jake Mitchell. Someone hired me to dig up information on your family, but I think you should know what's going on here." Jake had investigated Karen in 2 other jurisdictions where she'd targeted previous neighbors with identical tactics. "Your dad's not the first person she's done this to. Always the same pattern, manufactured violations, fake rules, harassment campaigns, then private investigators when people fight back. June arrived with Karen's behavior reaching levels of desperation that would have been comedic if they weren't so dangerous. Her latest scheme was breathtaking in its audacity. An emergency HOA meeting to vote me out of the neighborhood entirely. The meeting notice appeared on expensive letterhead. Emergency Community Safety Session, scheduled for Saturday at the clubhouse. Karen had been door-to-door canvassing for support, making increasingly outlandish claims about my dangerous influence on community stability. Saturday evening, 47 residents showed up, the largest HOA meeting attendance in our history. Karen arrived early, setting up presentation materials with manic precision. She'd brought charts, photographs of my property, and a PowerPoint titled, Protecting Our Community Values. I walked in with Dorothy, Linda, and 14 other neighbors carrying our own evidence boxes. The local newspaper reporter was already there. Linda had tipped him off about the corruption story. Karen launched into her prepared presentation, displaying photographs of my fence, Christmas lights, and native plant garden as evidence of capital crimes. This individual has organized systematic defiance of community rules, encouraged others to violate established standards, and created a hostile environment threatening safety and property values. When Karen finished her 20-minute presentation, Linda stood up calmly. Mrs. Whitfield, before this meeting proceeds further, I need to inform everyone that this gathering violates several state laws governing HOA meetings. Dorothy stepped forward with her audit findings, methodically reading aloud the financial irregularities, the $47,000 in landscaping contracts for work never performed, the $23,000 in clubhouse renovations consisting of paint, the systematically inflated vendor contracts enriching Preston's family while bankrupting our community. The room erupted as neighbors who'd been targeted by Karen's harassment campaigns started sharing their own stories. Every scam was exposed in front of the entire community. That's when Karen made her final desperate play. She pulled out her cell phone and called 911. I need police at the Willowbrook Estates clubhouse immediately. We have a dangerous situation with residents making threats and creating public disturbance. Send multiple units. This could get violent. The beautiful thing about Karen's dramatic phone call was that 47 witnesses heard her file what was obviously a false police report. We were sitting in folding chairs discussing financial documents. The most threatening thing in the room was probably the stale coffee. The sound of multiple patrol cars pulling into the parking lot created tense silence. 3 uniformed officers entered, scanning for signs of the riot situation they'd been dispatched to handle. What they found was 47 people sitting quietly in folding chairs, surrounded by financial documents. We received a report of a disturbance at this location, the lead sergeant said. Can someone explain what's going on here? Karen practically launched herself from behind the table, pointing dramatically at me. Officer, thank you for responding so quickly. That man has been threatening our community, organizing illegal activities, and creating a dangerous situation. The sergeant looked around the room full of neighbors sitting peacefully with notebooks and coffee cups. Ma'am, can you be more specific about the nature of these threats? That's when the second officer turned around fully, and my heart filled with pride. Hi, Dad, Detective Cameron Torres said with a slight smile. What seems to be the problem here? The transformation in Karen's face was something 47 witnesses would never forget. The color drained from her cheeks faster than water down a storm drain, her mouth opening and closing like a gasping fish. Cameron maintained his professional demeanor, pulling out his notebook. Ma'am, you called 911 reporting a riot situation with threats of violence. Can you explain specifically what threats were made and by whom? Linda Martinez stood up, handing Cameron a folder. Officer Torres, Mrs. Whitfield called this emergency session to demand that Mr. Torres be removed from the neighborhood. We responded by presenting evidence of systematic financial fraud. She's filed 17 false complaints with city agencies and multiple fraudulent police reports in a documented pattern of abuse. Cameron reviewed the documents with thorough attention. Mrs. Whitfield, based on the evidence presented and tonight's circumstances, I need to inform you that filing false police reports is a felony offense. There's no evidence of threats, violence, or public disturbance. However, there is clear evidence that you knowingly filed a false emergency report. Preston tried to interrupt. Officer, Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Whitfield, Cameron interrupted. Are you aware that filing false police reports can result in felony charges, especially with a documented pattern of abuse? The room fell silent except for Karen's panicked breathing. Cameron pulled out his handcuffs with matter-of-fact efficiency. Mrs. Whitfield, you're under arrest for filing a false police report. You have the right to remain silent. As the Miranda rights echoed through the clubhouse, Karen Whitfield was handcuffed and led out past the very residence she'd spent months trying to intimidate into submission. The weeks following Karen's arrest felt like watching a neighborhood wake up from a long, unpleasant dream. Karen was formally charged with multiple felonies and received 6 months in county jail, 2 years probation, and 400 hours of community service. Preston lost his law license for a year and paid $50,000 in fines. Within 60 days, we'd elected a new HOA board with Dorothy as president. All fraudulent violation fees were refunded, $23,000 returned to residents who'd been systematically scammed. We held a unity barbecue in my backyard with 38 families sharing stories they'd never told before. The new board established the Sarah Torres Memorial Scholarship Fund using money saved from eliminating Karen's unnecessary vendor contracts. Dorothy and I started dating slowly and carefully, both carrying tender spots from losing spouses. Karen's legal resolution revealed she'd been running similar scams in other communities for over a decade, always moving before anyone organized effective resistance. The HOA received a $125,000 settlement from our former management company's insurance policy. The real victory wasn't financial. It was walking through a neighborhood where kids played freely, where neighbors talked without fear of violation notices, where community gardens grew, where harassment once flourished. My union background had taught me that ordinary people can defeat corrupt systems when they organize, document everything, and refuse to be intimidated. Karen's biggest mistake was underestimating a neighborhood full of people tired of being bullied and ready to fight back together. So here's what I want you to remember: document everything. Know your rights. And never assume you're fighting alone. Someone else in your neighborhood is probably dealing with the same petty tyranny. Together, you're stronger than any small-time dictator with a clipboard and delusions of grandeur. Drop a comment sharing your HOA nightmare story. You're not alone in dealing with petty tyrants who think a little authority makes them untouchable. Subscribe if you want to hear more. Stories about standing up to corrupt authority and winning through persistence and principle. Next week, how my neighbor tried to steal my inheritance and ended up losing his own house. Because apparently some people never learn that crime doesn't pay, especially when your victim knows how to use a camera and read the fine print. That's all for today's HOA Madness. If watching justice serve itself made your day, smash that like button, share your thoughts down below, and make sure you're subscribed for more outrageous neighborhood showdowns.